The morning sun cast long shadows across the United Earth Council chambers as Ambassador Minho adjusted his formal diplomatic robes. Today would mark the most important moment in human history. After 300 years of dreaming about meeting other intelligent life, humanity was finally ready to take its place among the stars. Minho had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. Born in Seoul 52 years ago, he had dedicated his life to the art of peaceful negotiation. His gentle manner and patient wisdom had ended 3 major conflicts on Earth. Now the weight of representing all humanity rested on his shoulders. Standing beside him was Chief Diplomat Sora, her dark eyes reflecting both excitement and nervous energy. She had been chosen for her brilliant mind and her ability to find common ground between opposing sides. Where Minho brought calm authority, Sora brought creative solutions to impossible problems. The alien ship approached Earth slowly, its crystalline hull catching sunlight like a massive jewel. The vessel was beautiful beyond human imagination, appearing more like a work of art than a machine of war. This gave the human delegation hope that these beings valued beauty and peace as much as they did. Hyun stood at the observation deck, his scientific instruments recording every detail of the alien arrival. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, he had spent years imagining what alien life might look like. The reality was far more wonderful than his wildest theories. Through his telescopes, he could see figures moving within the transparent sections of the ship, beings that walked on multiple legs with grace that reminded him of dancers. In the quantum physics laboratory below, Nari worked frantically to prepare humanity's gift to the galaxy. She had discovered a new method of faster-than-light travel that was cleaner and more efficient than anything humans had created before. Her breakthrough used quantum entanglement in ways that created beautiful light patterns as ships moved through space. It was both practical and artistic, reflecting humanity's dual nature of science and beauty. The alien ship, calling itself the Federation vessel Harmony, requested permission to establish a meeting point in neutral space. The gesture seemed respectful and peaceful to the human observers. They had no way of knowing that among the stars, requesting neutral ground was actually a sign that the requester considered themselves superior to those they were meeting. Ambassador Minho led the human delegation aboard their finest ship, the Earth's Hope. The vessel had been specially prepared for this historic meeting. Artists from every culture on Earth had contributed decorations for the meeting rooms. Musicians had composed new pieces that blended sounds from across human civilization. The ship itself was a floating museum of human achievement and creativity. Jiho, the ship's commander, had been carefully selected for his calm demeanor and excellent judgment. A former merchant marine captain, he understood both the technical aspects of space travel and the importance of making good first impressions. His crew had trained for months to ensure everything would go perfectly during the first contact. Yuna, the head of scientific research, had prepared extensive presentations about human discoveries and achievements. She believed that sharing knowledge would be the foundation of friendship between species. Her team had compiled data on human medicine, engineering, art, philosophy, and social development. They wanted to show that humanity was ready to contribute positively to galactic civilization. The meeting took place in the vast cargo bay of the Earth's Hope, which had been converted into a beautiful reception hall. Floating holographic displays showed scenes from Earth, from snow-capped mountains to coral reefs, from bustling cities to peaceful farms. The presentations were designed to show the diversity and beauty of human civilization. When the alien delegates arrived, the humans were struck by their otherworldly beauty. The Varix representatives looked like living sculptures made of polished metal and crystal. They moved with mechanical precision but seemed to appreciate the artistic displays around them. The Helian delegates appeared to be made of living light, their forms shifting and changing like aurora in the night sky. Ambassador Minho began the meeting with a speech that had taken weeks to perfect. He spoke of humanity's long dream of meeting other intelligent life. He talked about Earth's history of conflict and how humans had learned to overcome their differences through understanding and cooperation. He offered friendship, trade partnerships, and shared scientific research. Sora presented the cultural gifts humanity had prepared. There were recordings of music from every human culture, from ancient folk songs to modern symphonies. There were digital libraries containing the greatest works of human literature, philosophy, and art. There were samples of human food and crafts, each one chosen to represent the diversity and creativity of human civilization. The alien delegates received these gifts with what appeared to be gracious acceptance. They activated translation devices and listened carefully to every word. They examined each gift with apparent interest and appreciation. Through their translators, they expressed what seemed to be gratitude and admiration for human achievements. Hyun was particularly excited when the aliens showed interest in human biological diversity. They seemed fascinated by the fact that humans came in so many different appearances while remaining the same species. They asked detailed questions about human evolution, adaptation, and survival strategies. Nari's presentation of human space travel technology received enthusiastic responses from the alien scientists. They appeared impressed by humanity's innovative approaches to solving engineering problems. They praised human creativity in developing new solutions rather than simply copying existing designs. The meeting lasted for 6 hours, with breaks for both sides to rest and consult among themselves. During these breaks, the human delegation felt increasingly confident that they had made a positive impression. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in human culture and achievements. They asked thoughtful questions and made what appeared to be complimentary remarks about human civilization. As the formal meeting concluded, the alien delegates extended an invitation for humanity to visit the Federation's embassy station at the edge of their territory. They suggested that this would be the first step toward humanity, joining the galactic community as full members. The invitation was presented as a great honor, something rarely offered to newly discovered species. Ambassador Minho accepted the invitation with gratitude and dignity. He expressed humanity's eagerness to learn from older and wiser civilizations. He promised that humans would approach this opportunity with respect, humility, and a genuine desire to contribute positively to galactic peace and prosperity. The alien delegates departed with what seemed to be satisfaction and anticipation for future meetings. As their ship disappeared into the depths of space, the human delegation celebrated what they believed to be a complete diplomatic success. They had no way of knowing that their peaceful approach had already sealed humanity's fate in ways they could never have imagined. Back on Earth, news of the successful first contact spread rapidly across every nation and continent. Celebrations erupted in major cities as humans everywhere felt pride in their species' achievement. For the first time in history, all of humanity was united in a single moment of joy and hope for the future. The stage was set for humanity's next great adventure among the stars. 3 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Federation. Embassy Station floated peacefully at the edge of Federation space, a gleaming symbol of human hopes and dreams. The station buzzed with activity as scientists, diplomats, and cultural ambassadors worked tirelessly to build bridges between Earth and the galaxy. Kang sat in his small office within the intelligence section of Embassy Station, surrounded by data screens and communication logs. As a former military intelligence officer who had transitioned to diplomatic service, he possessed skills that most of his peaceful colleagues lacked. While others focused on building friendships, Kang watched for potential threats and dangers. Something was bothering him about the Federation communications. The pattern seemed wrong somehow, though he could not quite identify what made him feel uneasy. Years of military training had taught him to trust his instincts when something felt off, even if he could not explain why. Working alongside him was Inha, a brilliant young linguist who had dedicated her life to understanding how different species communicated. She had been thrilled when assigned to Embassy Station, seeing it as the opportunity of a lifetime to study truly alien languages and thought patterns. Inha had been working day and night to improve the universal translation system that allowed humans and Federation species to communicate. She wanted to ensure that every nuance and cultural detail was properly conveyed between species. What she discovered instead would change everything humanity believed about their new galactic neighbors. The breakthrough came during a routine analysis of communication patterns between different Federation species. Inha noticed that certain phrases were being translated differently when spoken by humans versus when spoken by Federation members. At first, she thought it was simply a calibration error in the translation software. Deeper investigation revealed something far more disturbing. The universal translator was not making innocent mistakes. It was deliberately changing the meaning of human communications in systematic ways. Every time humans spoke of peace, cooperation, or friendship, the translator converted these concepts into words that meant submission, surrender, and acceptance of inferior status. Kang felt his blood run cold as Inha showed him example after example. When Ambassador Minho had spoken eloquently about humanity's desire to contribute to galactic civilization, the Federation had heard a formal declaration of willingness to serve as a subordinate species. When humans offered to share their technology and knowledge, the aliens understood it as tribute offered by vassals to their masters. The two humans worked in secret to decode more Federation communications, using Inha's linguistic expertise and Kang's intelligence training. What they discovered painted a horrifying picture of humanity's true situation. Every species that had approached the Federation peacefully had suffered the same fate within a single generation. Taemin, a quiet data analyst who worked in the station's information processing center, joined their investigation when they needed help accessing classified Federation databases. His specialty was finding patterns in large amounts of data, and what he found in the Federation's historical records made him physically ill. The files contained detailed records of dozens of species that had made first contact with the Federation in peaceful ways. Each record followed the same pattern: initial contact, cultural exchange, invitation to join galactic civilization, gradual integration, and finally complete assimilation as a slave species. The peaceful species were systematically stripped of their independence, their culture, and their freedom. Species after species had been classified as compliant and suitable for immediate integration into the Federation's labor caste system. Their home worlds were strip-mined for resources, while their populations were relocated to work camps across Federation space. The most intelligent members of each species were kept as specialized workers, while the rest became simple manual laborers. The three humans realized with growing horror that humanity was following exactly the same path. The Federation's seemingly friendly interest in human culture and technology was actually an evaluation process. They were determining how best to exploit humanity's unique capabilities once the assimilation process began. Worse still, the process had already started. Communications logs showed that Federation survey teams were already studying human colony worlds, cataloging their resources and populations. The aliens were preparing for what they called the integration phase, which would begin as soon as humanity was deemed fully compliant. When Bora, the head of human negotiations, prepared for the next major diplomatic meeting with the Federation Council, she had no idea that her carefully prepared speech about human peaceful intentions would be the final nail in humanity's coffin. Kang and his team tried to warn her, but she dismissed their concerns as paranoia and mistrust. The formal assembly took place in the Federation's Grand Council chamber, a massive space that could hold representatives from hundreds of different species. Bora stood at the central podium, surrounded by alien delegates whose true thoughts were hidden behind the facade of the universal translator. She spoke passionately about humanity's commitment to peace and cooperation. She pledged that humans would never use violence to achieve their goals. She promised that humanity would gladly accept guidance from older and wiser civilizations. Every word was music to the Federation's ears, though not for the reasons Bora intended. When she finished her speech, the Federation Council erupted in what the translator described as applause and approval. In reality, they were celebrating the successful completion of humanity's classification process. The Council's leader rose to make an announcement that would change human history forever. The Federation Council formally declared humanity to be a compliant species suitable for immediate integration into the galactic community. They praised human willingness to accept their proper place in the cosmic order. They announced that integration teams were already being dispatched to begin the peaceful transition process. Ambassador Minho's face went white as he realized what was happening. His years of diplomatic experience allowed him to recognize the true meaning behind the Federation's carefully chosen words. They were not welcoming humanity as equals. They were claiming ownership of the entire human species. When Minho attempted to clarify that humans had never agreed to become subjects of the Federation, his protests were dismissed as typical pre-assimilation anxiety. The Federation representatives assured him that all newly integrated species experienced similar concerns, but that these feelings would pass once the process was complete. The human delegation found themselves trapped in a nightmare scenario. Their peaceful approach, which they had thought would earn them respect and friendship, had instead marked them for extinction as a free species. The galaxy operated by rules that humanity had never understood, rules that equated peaceful intentions with weakness and submission. As the full scope of their situation became clear, the humans realized that their choice was simple and terrible. They could accept slavery for their entire species, or they could abandon everything they believed about peaceful coexistence and prepare for war against an enemy that controlled most of the galaxy. Back on Embassy Station, Kang activated emergency communication protocols to warn Earth about what was coming. The message he sent would shatter humanity's dreams of peaceful contact with alien civilizations, but it might also save the human species from sharing the fate of so many others who had approached the stars with hope instead of weapons. The age of human innocence was about to end forever. Daehyun stood in the security center of Embassy Station, his weathered face illuminated by dozens of emergency alert screens. As head of station security, he had spent 20 years in special forces before accepting what he thought would be a peaceful assignment, protecting diplomats and scientists. Now those combat skills were about to become humanity's most valuable asset. The encrypted messages from Earth painted a picture that made his blood boil with rage. Federation integration teams had arrived at 3 human colony worlds without warning. The aliens came in massive ships claiming they were there to help humanity transition into galactic civilization. The colonists had welcomed them with the same peaceful spirit that had guided first contact. The reality was a nightmare beyond human imagination. The Federation teams immediately began what they called processing operations. Families were separated, with the strongest and smartest humans taken for specialized training while others were loaded onto transport ships. Children were removed from their parents and sent to re-education centers where they would learn to accept their new status as Federation property. Yoonji, the station's communications officer, worked frantically to establish contact with resistance cells that were forming across human space. Her equipment filled the communication bay as she tried to maintain secure channels with Earth and the colonies. Each new message brought worse news about Federation activities in human territory. The colony of New Harmony had been completely emptied within 48 hours. Over 50,000 humans had simply vanished, taken to locations unknown. The Federation claimed they were being relocated to better facilities where they could receive proper training for their new roles in galactic society. On the mining world of Kepler Station, human engineers were forced to show Federation specialists how to operate the complex machinery they had built. Once the aliens learned how everything worked, the human workers were declared redundant and shipped away. The Federation was strip mining human achievements along with human lives. Wu, the station's chief engineer, spent sleepless nights in his workshop with Hana, a brilliant systems specialist. Together they worked to secretly modify every human ship they could access. The vessels that had been designed for peaceful exploration and trade were being transformed into something entirely different. The modifications had to be subtle enough to avoid detection by Federation sensors, but effective enough to give humanity a fighting chance when the time came. Wu's engineering background in both civilian and military systems allowed him to hide weapon capabilities within seemingly innocent equipment. Cargo bay loading systems could be converted to missile launchers. Scientific sensor arrays could become targeting systems. Even the artificial gravity generators could be weaponized in ways the Federation would never expect. Hana focused on communication and control systems, creating hidden networks that would allow human ships to coordinate attacks without the Federation detecting their plans. Her work was delicate and dangerous, requiring her to access Federation monitoring systems without triggering security alerts. What they discovered during this secret work gave them hope for the first time since learning the truth about Federation intentions. Human technology, while less advanced than Federation standard equipment, was built with flexibility that alien technology lacked. Federation systems were highly specialized and efficient, but they could only perform the specific tasks they were designed for. Human engineering was different. Human tools were designed to be adapted and modified as needed. Human systems could be repurposed for multiple functions. This adaptability, born from humanity's history of making do with limited resources, might be the key to survival against a technologically superior enemy. Seojin, a psychological warfare expert who had been studying Federation behavior patterns, proposed a radical plan to the secret leadership council that was forming among the station's personnel. If the Federation only respected strength and viewed peaceful behavior as weakness, then humanity needed to show them exactly what human strength looked like when unleashed. The plan was dangerous and would require abandoning everything humanity had believed about peaceful coexistence. But Seojun argued that the Federation had already made that choice for them. The aliens had declared war the moment they decided to enslave the human species. The only question was whether humans would fight back or simply accept their fate. The psychological profile that Seojun had developed of Federation mentality revealed a crucial weakness. The aliens had become so accustomed to easy victories over peaceful species that they had no experience dealing with serious resistance. Their military doctrine was designed for suppressing rebellions by enslaved populations, not fighting a determined enemy with nothing left to lose. More importantly, the Federation had never encountered a species that could match their capacity for violence while exceeding their intelligence and adaptability. Every species they had conquered had either been peaceful by nature or had possessed military traditions that were predictable and easy to counter. Humans were different. Human history was written in blood, with thousands of years of warfare that had produced military thinking of incredible sophistication. Humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of destroying other humans, creating weapons and tactics that could kill efficiently and terrifyingly. The Federation was about to learn what happened when that accumulated knowledge was focused on alien targets. The breaking point came when the Federation made their first serious mistake. A Federation patrol ship arrived at Embassy Station with orders to begin processing the human diplomatic mission. The alien captain expected the same compliance they had received from every other species at this stage of integration. Instead, they encountered Daehyun and his security team, who had spent weeks preparing for exactly this moment. The Federation troops found themselves facing humans who were no longer interested in peaceful negotiation. The diplomatic phase was over, and the war phase had begun. The battle for Embassy Station lasted only 6 hours, but its effects would echo across the galaxy for generations. The Federation troops, equipped with superior weapons and armor, expected to easily overwhelm the small human security force. They had never fought an enemy that understood concepts like tactical deception, asymmetric warfare, and acceptable casualties. Daehyun's team used every advantage they could create. They knew the station's layout perfectly while the aliens were fighting in unfamiliar territory. They used human engineering flexibility to turn maintenance equipment into improvised weapons. Most importantly, they fought with a desperation and fury that the Federation had never encountered. When reinforcements arrived to find their patrol ship destroyed and their troops defeated, the Federation finally began to understand that humanity was not like the other species they had conquered. The humans had not just resisted, they had won against superior numbers and technology through pure determination and tactical intelligence. Across human space, the news of Embassy Station's victory spread like wildfire. Colonies that had been passively accepting Federation processing suddenly erupted in coordinated revolts. Mining stations turned their industrial equipment into weapons. Transport ships carrying enslaved humans were seized by their passengers and crew. The Federation found themselves facing something they had never experienced in thousands of years of expansion. They were fighting a war against an enemy that refused to accept defeat, an enemy that could turn any situation to their advantage through sheer bloody-minded determination. The galaxy was about to learn why the human concept of total war was so feared by those who understood its implications. Humanity had awakened, and they were very, very angry. The morning sky over New Sol Colony burned with an unnatural red glow as Federation pacification ships descended through the atmosphere. Junyo stood in the colony administration center, watching through reinforced windows as the massive alien vessels approached his peaceful farming settlement. As colony administrator, he had spent 5 years building New Sol into a thriving community of 30,000 humans who had come to the frontier seeking a better life. The Federation ships were different from the elegant diplomatic vessels that had first made contact with humanity. These were brutal utilitarian craft designed for one purpose only: the efficient processing of conquered populations. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons that could level a city in minutes, and their cargo bays were sized to hold thousands of prisoners. Junho activated the colony's emergency broadcast system, knowing that these might be the last free words any human would speak from New Sol. His voice remained calm and steady as he described what was happening, even as Federation troops began landing in the colony's central square. The entire galaxy needed to know what the Federation's idea of peaceful integration really meant. The Federation commander who entered the administration building moved with the mechanical precision of someone who had performed this same task hundreds of times before. Through the universal translator, he announced that New Sol Colony was now under Federation protection and that all human residents would be relocated to facilities better suited to their new status as integrated citizens. What followed was systematic and horrifying in its efficiency. Federation troops moved through the colony with lists of names and skill assessments. Families were torn apart as specialists were separated from general laborers. Children old enough to be re-educated were loaded onto separate transports from their screaming parents. The elderly and disabled were deemed unsuitable for integration and simply left behind. Minji, a war correspondent who had been visiting New Sol to document frontier life, managed to hide in the colony's communications center with her recording equipment. Her military journalism training had taught her to remain objective even in the worst situations. But nothing had prepared her for witnessing the systematic destruction of an entire human community. She broadcast live footage of Federation soldiers using energy weapons on colonists who tried to protect their families. She recorded the loading of human children into alien transport ships, while their parents were beaten unconscious by Federation peacekeepers. Her final transmission showed Federation troops setting fire to the colony's cultural center, destroying books, art, and music that represented the heart of human civilization. The massacre at New Sol lasted 8 hours from beginning to end. When it was over, the thriving human colony had been reduced to smoking ruins and empty buildings. 30,000 humans had simply vanished, taken to destinations unknown for purposes that no free human would willingly accept. But Minji's broadcast had reached every human settlement in the galaxy through Yeri's quantum entanglement communication network. The young physicist had spent months perfecting a communication system that could transmit messages instantly across any distance. She had designed it to help human colonies stay connected, despite the vast distances of space. Now it became the tool that would coordinate humanity's response to Federation aggression. Admiral Dowan stood in the command center of Earth's primary space fleet, surrounded by screens showing Federation movements throughout human space. The former naval officer had been promoted to lead humanity's military response after the truth about Federation intentions became clear. His 30 years of military experience had taught him that there were times when diplomacy failed and only force could protect the innocent. The synchronized attack that Dowan coordinated was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. At exactly the same moment across dozens of star systems, human colonies erupted in coordinated rebellion. Mining ships attacked Federation supply convoys. Civilian transports rammed alien patrol vessels. Even unarmed colonists turned farm equipment and industrial tools into weapons of resistance. Sionho commanded the colony ship New Busan, which had been converted from a peaceful transport into humanity's first true warship. When he received the attack signal, his ship was positioned near a major Federation supply convoy that was carrying weapons and equipment to support the processing operations on human worlds. The Federation convoy consisted of 12 massive cargo ships protected by 6 military escorts. By every measure of military logic, a single human ship should have been destroyed within minutes of beginning an attack. But Sionho and his crew had spent weeks studying Federation military tactics and had discovered critical weaknesses in alien combat doctrine. Federation ships were individually superior to anything humans could build, but they fought according to rigid patterns that prioritized efficiency over adaptability. Their commanders followed standardized procedures that had worked against every previous enemy, but had never been tested against opponents who refused to fight fair. The battle began when New Busan appeared to suffer a critical engine failure near the convoy. When Federation ships moved to investigate what seemed to be a disabled civilian vessel, they found themselves facing a converted warship that had been disguised as a helpless transport. The human ship's cargo bays opened to reveal missile launchers and energy weapons built from modified mining equipment. More importantly, Sionho's crew fought with a desperation and creativity that the Federation military had never encountered. Instead of trying to defeat superior ships in conventional combat, they focused on maximum damage through unconventional means. They used debris fields as cover, turned cargo containers into improvised bombs, and employed ramming attacks that no professional military would consider acceptable. Jiwan led a squadron of converted mining vessels in a similar attack against a Federation processing facility. Her ships had originally been designed to break apart asteroids for valuable minerals. With minimal modifications, the same equipment could break apart alien spacecraft with devastating effectiveness. The mining ships approached the Federation facility disguised as a routine ore delivery. The aliens had no reason to suspect civilian vessels that were simply conducting normal business operations. When the attack began, Federation defenders found themselves facing industrial equipment that could cut through their most advanced armor like paper. Jiwan's tactical innovation was even more devastating than her weapons. Instead of fighting to capture or hold territory, her forces focused entirely on destroying Federation infrastructure and equipment. They hit fuel depots, communication centers, and supply warehouses before disappearing back into the asteroid, fields where their ships could hide among natural mining operations. The psychological impact of these coordinated attacks sent shockwaves throughout Federation space. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the Federation was facing an enemy that could strike anywhere at any time without warning. Human forces appeared to be everywhere and nowhere, hitting targets that should have been safe and then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as reports poured in of human victories against impossible odds. Species that had been enslaved for generations began to whisper about the possibility of freedom. The Federation's reputation for invincible military might crack as news spread of humans who refused to accept defeat, even when facing certain death. But the most important impact was on humanity itself. The massacre at New Sol had awakened something primal and terrible in the human spirit. The species that had approached the stars with songs of peace and gifts of friendship had been transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before. An enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be intimidated, and would never, ever surrender. The fire of human fury had been ignited, and it would burn until either humanity was free or the galaxy itself was reduced to ashes. Kyung stood before the holographic display in the war room aboard the flagship Earth's Vengeance, studying Federation military positions across 3 star systems. As humanity's chief strategic planning officer, she had spent months introducing alien commanders to concepts they had never encountered in thousands of years of galactic conquest. The Federation was learning that humans did not fight wars the way civilized species were supposed to fight. The holographic map showed the aftermath of 6 months of human military operations. Red zones marked Federation facilities that had been completely destroyed. Yellow areas indicated facilities that were damaged, but still operational. Green zones showed territory that remained under Federation control, though these areas were shrinking every day as human forces pressed their relentless advance. What the map could not show was the psychological impact of human tactics on Federation forces. Kyung had introduced the aliens to the human concept of total war, a form of conflict that targeted not just military forces, but the entire infrastructure and will to fight of the enemy. Unlike other species that fought according to honor codes and traditional rules, humans fought to win by any means necessary. Federation commanders found themselves facing an enemy that operated by completely different rules. When humans attacked a military base, they did not simply capture it and move on. They destroyed it so thoroughly that it could never be rebuilt. They eliminated supply lines, communication networks, and support facilities. They made sure that every Federation defeat was permanent and irreversible. Suyan led the stealth reconnaissance unit known as Ghost Squadron, pioneers of tactics that terrorized Federation forces across 3 sectors. Her ships were modified civilian vessels that appeared on sensors as harmless cargo haulers or research craft. By the time Federation defenders realized they were under attack, the Ghost Squadron ships had already completed their mission and vanished. The psychological warfare value of Ghost Squadron operations went far beyond the physical damage they caused. Federation forces never knew when or where the next attack would come. Supply convoys required massive military escorts because humans could appear anywhere. Communication stations needed constant protection because Ghost Squadron could strike deep behind enemy lines without warning. Suyeon's greatest innovation was the development of hit and fade tactics that made her forces seem to be everywhere at once. Her ships would strike a Federation facility, withdraw to a hidden base, then attack a completely different target hours later in a system hundreds of light years away. Federation intelligence could never predict where humans would strike next. Because the attacks followed no logical pattern, the fear factor was enhanced by human psychological operations that left Federation survivors with stories that grew more terrifying with each retelling. Federation troops began reporting encounters with human forces that seemed superhuman in their ability to appear and disappear. The reality was simpler but more frightening. Humans had learned to use the galaxy's own infrastructure against the Federation. Jinwoo commanded the heavy assault unit known as the Iron Hammers, showing the galaxy what happened when humans decided something needed to be completely destroyed. His ships were converted industrial vessels equipped with mining lasers, construction equipment, and demolition charges that had been repurposed for military use. When the Iron Hammers attacked a target, nothing remained but debris and radiation. The Iron Hammers specialized in attacking Federation strongholds that were considered impregnable by conventional military thinking. Their approach was simple and brutal. If a fortress could not be captured quickly, it would be destroyed completely. Jinwoo's forces used industrial equipment to literally dismantle enemy positions piece by piece until nothing functional remained. Federation military doctrine had no response to tactics that prioritized complete destruction over territorial gain. Their defensive strategies were based on making positions too expensive to capture, not too expensive to destroy. When faced with an enemy that was willing to obliterate everything rather than accept partial victory, Federation defenders found their strongest positions becoming death traps. The psychological impact on Federation forces was devastating. Surrender became meaningless because humans rarely took prisoners from heavily fortified positions. Negotiation was impossible because humans refused to accept anything less than total victory. Federation commanders discovered that their only options were complete victory or complete destruction. Ari had transformed from a battlefield medic into humanity's leading combat engineer, developing weapons and tactics that Federation medical technology could not counter. Her background in treating human injuries had given her intimate knowledge of biology and physiology that she now applied to the problem of how to kill aliens efficiently. The weapons that Ari designed were specifically tailored to exploit weaknesses in Federation physiology and technology. She created toxins that targeted alien nervous systems, electromagnetic weapons that disrupted alien cybernetic implants, and viral programs that could corrupt alien computer systems. Her innovations turned human medical knowledge into tools of destruction. More importantly, Ari had developed countermeasures against Federation medical technology that other species had never managed to create. Federation healing systems were designed to treat injuries caused by energy weapons and conventional explosives. They were not prepared for human weapons that caused damage at the cellular level or that introduced foreign substances that alien immune systems could not process. The Federation's greatest advantage had always been their ability to quickly heal wounded troops and return them to combat. Ari's medical warfare innovations eliminated that advantage by creating injuries that Federation medicine could not treat effectively. For the first time in their history, Federation forces faced the possibility of permanent disability or death from combat wounds. Hajun coordinated the logistics that kept human forces supplied and mobile across thousands of light years of contested space. His greatest achievement was demonstrating humanity's ability to turn any resource into a weapon and any setback into motivation for greater effort. Where other species required elaborate supply chains and specialized equipment, humans could improvise solutions from whatever materials were available. The logistical network that Hajun created was unlike anything the Federation had encountered. Instead of relying on centralized supply depots that could be targeted and destroyed, human forces operated from hidden bases scattered throughout asteroid fields, nebulae, and abandoned star systems. Each base was capable of producing weapons and equipment from raw materials using technology, adapted from civilian mining and manufacturing operations. When Federation forces destroyed human supply bases, they discovered that humans simply built new ones using salvaged materials and captured equipment. Every Federation defeat provided humans with additional resources and technology that could be reverse-engineered and improved. The aliens were literally supplying their enemies with the tools needed to destroy them. The Federation's attacks against human colonies had the opposite effect from what was intended. Instead of breaking human will to resist, each atrocity created thousands of new volunteers for military service. Human anger and determination grew stronger with every Federation victory, turning the aliens' tactical successes into strategic disasters. Within 18 months of beginning their resistance, human forces had achieved something that the Federation had never experienced. They were losing a war against a species they had intended to enslave. The galaxy watched in amazement as reports arrived of Federation fleets retreating from human space, Federation colonies requesting protection from human attacks, and Federation commanders requesting reinforcements to deal with an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of warfare. The Federation had awakened humanity's capacity for war, and now they were learning why the human approach to conflict was so different from anything they had encountered. Humans did not fight to achieve honor or glory or territorial gain. They fought to ensure that their enemies could never threaten them again, and they were willing to sacrifice everything to achieve that goal. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their tactics, but their absolute refusal to accept defeat under any circumstances whatsoever. 2 years after the Federation forced humanity into war, the galaxy bore scars that would never fully heal. Fleet Admiral Beomgu stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Humanity's Wrath, watching through the viewports as Federation capital ships burned in the space around their home world. The once mighty armadas that had conquered hundreds of species now drifted as twisted metal and cooling plasma, testament to what happened when humans were pushed beyond the point of forgiveness. Beomgu had begun this war as a simple ship captain, assigned to protect civilian transports. The gentle academic who had once taught literature at Seoul University was now the supreme commander of military forces that had swept through 3 Federation sectors like an unstoppable tide of destruction. The transformation still surprised him sometimes, but the galaxy had taught him that survival required becoming something he had never wanted to be. The Federation capital world of Centralis hung before them, its once proud cities dark and silent. The planet that had been the symbol of galactic civilization for thousands of years was now a monument to the consequences of underestimating human determination. The war was ending not with negotiation or compromise, but with the complete collapse of everything the Federation had built. Yunjin directed human intelligence operations from a command center deep within an asteroid base that had once been a simple mining station. Her network of agents and sympathizers now stretched across the galaxy, having successfully turned half of the Federation's client species against their former masters. The truth about peaceful integration had spread. Like wildfire, once species learned what really happened to civilizations that trusted Federation promises. The intelligence reports flowing across Yunjin's desk painted a picture of total systemic collapse. Federation infrastructure was crumbling as enslaved species rebelled across thousands of worlds. Supply lines that had operated smoothly for millennia were being severed by newly liberated populations who remembered what freedom meant. The galaxy was fracturing along lines that had been hidden for generations by Federation propaganda. Species after species had risen in revolt once they learned the truth about their own histories. The crystalline Helians discovered that their ancestors had been peaceful musicians before Federation integration turned them into living computers. The insectoid Variks learned that their rigid caste system had been imposed by alien masters, not evolved naturally. Every revelation weakened Federation control and strengthened the growing alliance of liberated worlds. Siwu led the final assault on the Federation capital, commanding a fleet composed of ships from dozens of species that had regained their freedom through human intervention. The irony was not lost on him that the species which had sought peace above all else now led the largest military alliance in galactic history. But this alliance was built on liberation rather than conquest, on justice rather than domination. The battle for Centralis lasted only 6 hours, but those 6 hours marked the end of an era that had lasted for thousands of years. Federation defenders, weakened by rebellions and supply shortages, faced an enemy that had learned to coordinate the military capabilities of multiple species into a single, overwhelming force. Human tactical innovation combined with alien technology and the fury of newly freed peoples created a combination that no single species could resist when the Federation Council finally requested terms for surrender. They found themselves facing representatives of a humanity that had been fundamentally changed by 2 years of total war. The peaceful diplomats who had once offered friendship and cultural exchange were gone, replaced by hardened military commanders who spoke in terms of acceptable losses and strategic necessities. Soman, who had risen from a junior diplomat to become Earth's prime minister during the war, stood before the shattered Federation Council to deliver humanity's final judgment. Her words were broadcast across the galaxy, reaching every species that had suffered under Federation rule and every world that had been stripped of its resources and people. Her speech was not about mercy or reconciliation or building a better future together. It was a cold, precise declaration of the new reality that humanity had created through 2 years of unrelenting warfare. The Federation's rigid caste system would be dismantled completely. Their slave species would be liberated and given full independence. Their military capability would be eliminated permanently. Soman's final words became legendary across the galaxy, spoken with the quiet authority of someone who had learned that peace was something that had to be earned through strength, rather than hoped for through goodwill. She thanked the Federation for teaching humanity that peaceful intentions were meaningless without the power to enforce them, and for showing them that sometimes the only way to preserve what you value is to destroy those who would take it from you. The systematic dismantling of Federation power took another year to complete. Human forces and their allies methodically eliminated every military installation, every weapons factory, and every command center that had once controlled galactic civilization. The process was thorough, efficient, and utterly without mercy for those who had shown no mercy to others. The liberated species were given the choice of independence or alliance with the new galactic order that humanity was establishing. Unlike the Federation's forced integration, this was a genuine choice with no hidden consequences. Species that chose independence were provided with the technology and resources needed to defend themselves. Those that chose alliance retained their cultural identity while contributing to mutual defense. But the cost of victory was higher than anyone had imagined when the war began. Chan Wu, the last surviving member of the original diplomatic mission that had approached the stars with songs and gifts, stood in the ruins of the Federation capital and wondered what humanity had become. The species that had dreamed of peaceful cooperation among the stars had instead become the galaxy's most feared military power. The transformation was visible in every human settlement and ship. Art and music had given way to weapons and armor. Scientific research focused on developing more efficient ways to destroy enemies, rather than exploring the wonders of the universe. Children grew up learning tactical doctrine instead of poetry, military history instead of philosophy. Gaon, the new galactic administrator, worked from a fortress that had once been a center of learning and culture. Her job was to establish humanity's new order across thousands of worlds, ensuring that the mistakes that had led to the Federation's rise could never be repeated. It was necessary work, but it was nothing like the peaceful exploration of space that humans had once dreamed about. The galaxy was finally at peace, but it was a peace enforced by human guns rather than achieved through human hearts. Every star system knew that humanity possessed both the capability and the willingness to destroy any threat to galactic stability. The species that had once approached the stars with open hands now ruled through implied threat of annihilation. Trade routes that had once been controlled by Federation bureaucrats were now patrolled by human warships. Diplomatic disputes that had once been settled through negotiation were now resolved through the knowledge that humanity would intervene if necessary. The galaxy had peace, but it was the peace of the graveyard rather than the peace of the garden. In the end, humanity had achieved exactly what they had originally wanted: a galaxy where different species could coexist without fear of conquest or enslavement. But the price had been the transformation of humanity itself, from dreamers of peace into guardians of war. They had saved the galaxy by becoming everything they had once hoped never to be. The stars still shone with the same light they had always cast, but the species that looked up at them now did so with different eyes. The galaxy had wished to keep its old ways of domination and slavery, but humanity had made change inevitable through methods that would be remembered for millennia to come.